Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Chauvininny.
Yes.
Thank you. Now that we've passed the resolution, now we have to implement it by applying to the state to, I think it's October 1st.
Yes, sir.
We have to send in an application to approve the 1% tax to go into effect January of this coming year. So part two of the same resolution that infrastructure to be benefited from.
So for the record, I can just highlight a
Sure.
few items. You should all have this packet on the 1% municipal sales tax. The authority to implement that tax was given by the legislature during the budget negotiations for the state. It used to be requiring a referendum, and the legislature changed it for non-home rule municipalities such as Pontiac, that the city council could pass a 1% sales tax, up to a 1% sales tax without a referendum. It is specific that that sales tax may only be used for public infrastructure, defined by statute as municipal roads, streets, access roads, bridges, and sidewalks, waste disposal systems, water and sewer line extensions, water distribution and purification facilities, stormwater drainage and retention facilities, and sewage treatment facilities, or for property tax relief defined as the action of a municipality to reduce the levy for real estate taxes or avoid an increase in the levy for real estate taxes that would otherwise have been required. The next page just shows what the expected revenues are, shows what they would have been from 2019 on up. In 2023, the expected revenues are $2,109,935. Those are based upon, if you recall, the schools have that 1% sales tax, and so that is what we base, our numbers would be taxing the same things. So what is included in the tax, the retailer occupation tax, is a tax on general merchandise where the sale originated, foods prepared for on-premise consumption, all candy and soft drinks. And to go along with it, the legislature states that if you pass a service or retailer occupation tax, you have to also pass a service occupation tax, which is tangible personal property sold incident to sales and service. So for example, your HVAC work, you're buying filters from them, those are taxed. So currently, the funds that are used for street maintenance, we have about $470,000 that we get each year from motor fuel tax, as well as transportation renewal fund. The motor fuel tax is a legislative distributive fund based on a per capita. So while we have Wally's out there selling a lot of gas, whether we have Wally's or not, our amount of the sales tax for gas would be the same. Based on the sales overall in the state, we get a portion based on our population. Federal FAU funds, those build up. So we have $190,000. An FAU project is a project that would require a bonded street project. For example, the last one we did was Indiana Avenue up by the high school. That's a complete rebuild of a road, not just an overlay. And then I also included in there the cost of street renovations. It's $50,000 for an overlay and $150,000 for a block, and that's probably a couple years old, so I don't know whether those are up yet or not. So as you can see, typically in a year, $470,000 gets you three point some blocks of work. The next page was an example of a property tax bill. If your property tax was $3,500, where that money goes. The city gets 22% of property tax. So of the $3,500 tax, we would get $770. Of that $770, that's in the levy. The overall majority of that goes toward pensions, liability, insurance, and then the library is also included in our levy as well. So that's about 90% of property tax goes to fund the pensions, the liability, and insurance. The property tax levy, for 2023, we levied $2,828,000 And this is a PTEL community, PTEL meaning that there is a limit on the amount that a city may increase its property tax levy, and that amount is either the CPI or the rate of inflation, or CPI or 5%, whichever is lower. And so this next coming year, the CPI has been designated at 3.4%. That would bring in an additional $100,000, $979. And so that is mainly the biggest reason why the city chose a sales tax for raising the amount of revenue to get to $2 million. I did do some numbers that if we were to raise that additional $2 million by levy, which we can't do because of PTEL, that would add $502 to the $770 of the tax. So what's not included is that food and drugs and titled vehicles are not included in the 1% sales tax. And the majority of the tax is paid by non-residents. It's paid in small increments. And the retail centers around us already have a non-home rule municipal sales tax. This is being Dwight, Shinoa, Lexington, Streeter, Bloomington, and Normal. They all have that additional tax already. Then at the very back, I just included historically, when we were looking at the referendum, what those taxes were going to be used for. 10% was going to replace the telecommunications tax. That is not an option under this version of the state's law, because there are only the two options, the infrastructure and then the levy. Again, and then 10% was going to go toward the ambulance service. Again, not an option with the state law. And 80% was going towards street improvements. And as you recall, the resolution declared that the council's position was to use 100% for infrastructure, street improvements, and the like. Next page, the prior ideas also included a $7 million bond to do a lot of work up front, and then take the bond against the sales tax that were coming in the future. At this point, there hasn't been any decision to do that. Rather than spend the money, there were two obstacles that we kind of popped up and worked through on that. With the level of work $7 million might bring, we might have a hard time finding contractors to do all the work, and we would have a lot of construction going on at one time. In addition to that, rather than be paying interest on loans, if the city's going to receive an additional $2 million, we can budget those projects out. And our city engineer's been working on a 5-year plan that would include this sales tax to evenly distribute based on street needs within the community. And I shouldn't say street, transportation, infrastructure needs. Once again, the very last page is a map from our ArcGIS from the engineer and his team have been going through town and rating our streets. And if you see on this map, and there are some of these out there if you don't have them in the audience as well, the color coding on these are red are definitely in need of extensive repair. Yellow and orange streets are maintenance needed, and the green ones are new or light new. And so then the final piece of that is when will it begin? And as the mayor said, if the ordinance passes, we submit the ordinance to the Illinois Department of Revenue. They have to get it in time before October, and then distribution begins in January of 2025. And so we would probably see revenue around March. The state's usually a couple months behind in distributions. They collect it, put it together, and then send it. So it takes them a month or two.
So we're building for the future, in other words. Yeah. That's what the gist comes down to. But it's an opportunity to get more street work done, more sidewalk work done. And we're obligated to prioritize, and Brian and the crew have done a great job. He and Chris have done a survey of all of our streets, and we can't get it done without it, so that's where we're at. So basically, we just need a motion to move on that ordinance. So, any other questions?
Are we required every year to levy the 1%?
No, once it's, the ordinance is passed and it's filed with Department of Revenue, it's renews on its own.
So we can cut back.
You could pass an ordinance to change it, yes.
Yeah.
Pass an ordinance to reduce the percentage or
Correct.
totally draw the, I mean, you can pass an ordinance to reduce the percentage or to terminate the 1% tax. You can implement it, you can terminate.
It has to be in quarter percents.
Yeah.
Any other questions? You'll need a motion now.
I'll make the motion.
Jason? Jerry? Motion by Jerry?
I'll
Seconded
second.
by Jason. Roll call, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Giovanini,
Yes.
Callis.
Yes.
Speaking of Brian, I think he has something to update us with the Illinois Department of Transportation.
Yes, for our ITEP grant that is ongoing right now, the original grant was stipulated that we would be using federal ITEP funds, and the amendment here would be that the state would be administering those funds in lieu of the federal level. That will streamline paperwork just a little bit and be a benefit to us overall. So just all we need to do today is to approve this amendment to use the state ITEP funds as opposed to the federal funds.
Any questions on that? I think we're in desperate need, like always, so,
That won't delay your,
no.
the state won't be slower at this than the Fed.
No, it'll be the same time frame.
So I'd make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mike, seconded by Scott. Roll call, please.
Hauser,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Giovanini, Callis.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, the HMA maintenance bid award.
Last Monday, we opened up bids for our HMA maintenance program. There were 4 bidders at that meeting, and the low bid was H.J. Epple and Company. I would recommend that we would award this contract to them in the $359,756.36 amount to do the HMA maintenance for 2024.
Any questions? General maintenance that we have to do, so.
I'd move to approve that.
Motion by Mike,
Second.
seconded by Barb. Yes. Roll call, please.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Giovanini, Callis.
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Okay, and now we're off to sidewalks. Brian?
Also, last Monday, we opened up bids for our 2024 sidewalk maintenance program. We had 2 bidders for that program. The low bid was Opperman Construction, the amount of $136,038. We would recommend that we award that bid to Opperman Construction and get started as soon as we can.
How many streets are involved? Is that just Vermillion?
For the sidewalks, it's Vermillion Street and Catherine Street.
Okay, Catherine.
I'd make the motion. Nobody has any discussion.
Pardon?
I said I'd make the motion if nobody has any discussion.
I'll second.
Motion by Jerry, seconded by Jason. Roll call, please.
Cranford.
Yes.
Howard. Yes. Willie.
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Giovanini. Yes. Callis.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Bradshaw. Yes.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, coming up now, see Jake is making his way here. He's looking to do a little improvement out of the sanitary.
Good evening. So before I get too in-depth with this, I wanted to take a few minutes to explain the process and the reasoning behind this to the council, not just the council, but also to the general public, just because I'm sure there's going to be some questions asked, mainly, you guys just got done building a new treatment plant, why are you asking for a piece of equipment? So I want to elaborate and just shed some light on this process, just to, so everybody understands. So when a treatment plant is built, you've got an array of different styles of equipment, ranging from $1 million plus, based on the size, to maybe a couple $1,000s in a small chemical pump. And in this variety of equipment, all this equipment has a different lifespan, based on the application, based on the size, based on how many hours a day or week this equipment operates. So going back to where the bulk of our treatment plant, when it was built in 1986 in the Phase 2 construction project, where the majority of the buildings and the process was put in, when that was built, there was equipment all over the spectrum with different lifespans. Typically, the more expensive items, such as the influent bar screens and the sludge dewatering equipment, these larger items have longer lifespans. Bar screens have a lifespan of typically 20 to 25 years or so, same as the sludge presses. Again, whereas your smaller sludge pumps, your submersible water pumps, based on their usage, may only have anywhere from 5 to 10. So once the treatment plant is built, that is, the equipment replacement is always continuing based on the original longevity and the use. So after that 1986 plant was built, over the years, that equipment had to be replaced as it aged. Our maintenance program prolonged that very well. We've always had a very good maintenance team out there that took care of everything. So most of those big ticket items we were able to keep running until the recent upgrade project. However, some of the equipment in that facility we couldn't stretch to make it to that upgrade. So we've had to replace throughout the years, into the 90s and the 2000s, until we did the bulk of it recently. One of those items are our blowers. And what the blowers do in the wastewater treatment process is they provide mixing and they provide oxygen to support the bacteria life, which is the backbone of the treatment process, is cultivating and culturing these bacteria. So these blowers run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're the workhorses of the facility. So after that 86 project, once we got into the 90s and the early 2000s, those blowers started getting to the point where they needed replaced. So we replaced them as needed to keep operating. So fast forward to, I guess for now, backtrack to 2017. And to note that, it has been over 7 years since we began designing the upgrade project. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's been over 7 years, going on 8, since we started designing the recent upgrade, which is, to me, is wild that it's been that long already. But at that point, we had to make some decisions on, of all the equipment we're replacing and everything we're upgrading in this project, what equipment is either ready to be replaced now, what's going to be ready to be replaced once we put the shovel in the dirt, and what equipment still has some life left in it from recent replacements. And our main goal was looking at what did we recently spend money on, and is it worth replacing when it still has life? And the consensus was, if we made the initial investment with tax-paying dollars and sewer user dollars to replace a piece of equipment, why waste that and decommission it or replace it when it still has many years of service life left in it? So before we started the construction project, there was a handful of items that we deemed were maybe only halfway through their lifespan that we wanted to get our money's worth from when we replaced them and ride them out till they provided their full service to us. All but one are small ticket items. One of them is the bar screen that we replaced in 2009. That will carry us well into the 2030s before we'll need to replace that. The rest of them are smaller ticket items. A couple sludge pumps we replaced in the mid-2000s, a couple chemical pumps, and 2 blowers. One we replaced around 2004, the other one around 2007. So we've typically had 5 blowers because we need redundancy when 1 or 2 of them are down for repair or maintenance. We still have to be able to provide. So everything at the facility is doubled or even tripled based on the importance and where it's needed in the process. So we made the decision to keep 2 of our older blowers and replace the other 3. So looking back, this was a wise decision because although we did biological modeling on how the new treatment plant would operate, there were some minor, I guess, unknowns. So after operating the new blowers, the old ones and new ones for the last few years, we've seen that now that these older blowers, these 2 that we kept, it's time to start looking at replacing them. We found we can replace them with much smaller, inexpensive blowers to handle low flow periods at night when flow's down really low, when we're not really receiving much wastewater. Had we not done that, we would have put the same size blowers in and would have been wishing we would have waited. So this is a little bit of a blessing in disguise that we held on to these to get the most use out of them as we could. The one that I'd like to replace right now has over 70,000 hours on it and has went through approximately 2 overhauls in its life. And those are 100 horsepower blowers. And what we found is we can replace them with 60 horsepower blowers to provide that low flow and low demand oxygen. So when we looked at what we can replace these with, we looked at different styles of blowers because there's about a dozen of them in the industry. And we looked at what's going to be the best one to replace in this existing footprint, what's going to be the most cost effective, and what's going to suit our needs the best. So we got 4 quotations from different blower manufacturers. The most expensive being Innovair, it was at $103,225. The least expensive being Kaiser brand at $34,974. And the advantage of this Kaiser is not only is it the least expensive out of these options, we already have 2 Kaiser compressors at the facility that we're familiar with. The maintenance team is familiar with working on them. And also, this brand will fit into the existing footprint virtually seamlessly with very minimal piping. And the electrical system is completely turnkey. We will not have to change a thing on the updated electrical system to support this new blower. Also, from downgrading from a 100 horse to a 60 horse size blower, this investment will pay for itself over time with the energy savings every year from running that much less electricity and horsepower. So we have 2 of these blowers. I'd like to replace one now, and I'd like to wait a couple years down the line till that other one's just about expired and look at replacing that one as well. So again, this will always be evolving. In a couple years, one of the sludge pumps we kept will be time to replace. But the nice part is all these are pretty cheap, smaller ticket items. So just to shed some light on why I'm here tonight asking for this. So with your permission, I'd like to move forward with replacing one of our older blowers with the Kaiser for the price of $34,974. This will be funded through our new equipment category of our fiscal budget from the treatment plant, which there is ample funds in there every year for these types of replacements. I guess, does anybody have any questions or concerns?
What's caused the big difference between Innovar and Kaiser? I mean, it's,
So Innovairs are actually, the 3 blowers we did replace, those are Innovairs. And what they are is they have the widest spectrum of air production out of any blowers. They can give us the most amount of air when we're in flood stage, high loading, high flow. They turn down the least when we need the least amount of air. And when we looked at all these styles of blowers under design, we decided these would be the best to suit our needs because we're still a combined sewer community, and we can go from receiving 1.5 million gallons of water, getting 2 inches of rain, and we're inundated. We needed the right blowers to handle those extreme cases from low flow to high flow. And those will still handle that situation. The Kaiser blower is it's a smaller package, and it's a whole completely different style of blower. It's what they call a screw type blower, rather than the Innovairs, which are similar to a supercharger on a vehicle, just very oversized. Kaisers have been around for a very long time. They're a little bit more of a simplistic blower, which for low flow and low air volume situations, it's the way to go. So again, we just looked at different styles and wanted to see across a spectrum what everybody had to offer. Now, I agree, that is, for that size of a blower is crazy. But for this for our application for the bigger blowers, it was the perfect blower for that. For this application, it's probably the worst one. But to compare oranges, apples, and apples, we looked at all 4 of them. The Airzon, the Hardy Pro, and the Kaisers are all pretty similar style design. The Innovair, we were mainly just curious because we already had 3 of them at the treatment plant.
and the other question, and maybe you answered it and it went over my head, it says the smaller unit can provide sufficient air volume for low flow periods. What about the other periods?
So how this will work is, let's say we have a target oxygen level of 2 milligrams per liter, or parts per million is what we're trying to achieve. Now, after 9 p.m., when our flow just really drops off, everybody's sleeping, nobody's showering, nobody's using the restroom, that lower flow compressor it's going to have a less demand, so it can provide the air until in the morning when flow starts coming up, everybody's getting up, showering, or we've got rain. So what it'll do is when we have that low demand, our automatic system, which is already programmed and in place from the project upgrade, will call on that blower to supply the air until it's running, it can't get enough, and it'll go, okay, you shut off, we need a big guy, fire him up. And that's how they'll operate. That's already how that system's already in place and programmed and works, but it'll work even better with the smaller blower to where this thing will be able to provide better air and wasting less air in those low flow periods. So this will actually create a lot more efficiencies at the facility, especially with energy use.
Okay.
So you'll still have to replace the bigger blowers eventually too.
Right, but those big ticket items, those blowers, those will last us 25 years, 30 years. Those will last us to the next project, just as these lasted us. So we've got a long ways to go on those. And the nice part is, since 1986, the technology has gotten so much better, and the componentry has gotten simpler, easy to replace, easier to maintain, to where we'll get a lot longer lifespans out of our equipment with this upgrade than we did the 1986 project.
Cool.
What did you allocate for new equipment in your budget?
$100,000.
100,000.
And originally, I was wanting to replace a fleet vehicle and one of our UTVs. But again, because of the cost savings of putting the smaller compressor in at this time, those things can hold off, and I think now would be the time to do this. In addition, it is at least a 4-month wait period for this to be manufactured. So it'll be the end of the year before we even get this thing to put it in, just because we got to put the order in and everything's back ordered to that extreme.
Thanks, Jake. I think you've given us plenty of information.
I know it was an overload, but I just wanted to clarify.
But there's quite a bit of equipment out there, and we budgeted for it, so, we're ready to go. Any other questions before we vote or take a motion?
John's trying to.
I move we accept the Kaiser bid for the blower motor.
Okay, John? Second. Motion by John, seconded by Scott. Roll call, please.
Howard. Yes. Willie.
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Giovanni.
Yes.
Callis.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Bradshaw. Yes. Cranford.
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Jake. Keep up the good work. Moving on, fourth quarter financials. I think Jim has a little bit of
Yes.
insight for us.
So last council, we had the financial information in here, but it didn't make it onto the agenda, so it's here now. So the fiscal year 2024, the general fund ended with a more revenue than expenses. So we ended up in really good shape at the end of last year. Some of the big notes, if you go through the line items, the golf course, the revenues exceeded what we projected by $40,000, and the expenses were $20,000 less than what we had expected. So the golf course had a great year. And the depreciation replacement, you would notice that's Fund 08. Had $379,000 expenses of ARPA funds. That was, we had to obligate ARPA funds, and we obligated them toward a fire truck that was purchased in 2021. And as you go through the tourism budget was over budget, but we had a couple of things that happened with the tourism budget. We split tourism and community enrichment into two separate funds, and on top of that, we had an employee leave with a payout, and so we saw a little higher than normal expenditures there. All in all, still, that fund, the 16 is in the general fund. So all in all, the general fund ended up in very good shape. We budgeted expenses of 7.7 million, and we actually expended 6.6. So we did quite well in there. And if anybody has been through or has any questions, there's couple items that still need finished. You'll notice the ambulance fund shows the net income in red of 314,000. There's a few auditing things that haven't happened yet. There was some movement that needs to happen toward IMRF and liability insurance from the ambulance fund. In addition to that, we're still putting together our TIF eligible expenditures to move from TIF to the general, as well as the sewer transfer that goes to general as well. The Lauterbach and Amon is putting that stuff together now, and we're getting ourselves prepped for the budget, the audit, to get that started as soon as we can. No action needs taken, just unless you have questions.
This is more of an update, so we know where we're at and how we're doing. So, any questions for Jim? If not, we're going to move on to mayor's comments. I have about 50 of them on here, but there's really only one that I want to touch on. I want to highlight that our celebration for the summer is going to happen this Saturday at the golf course, at the Oaks. We're having the concert and fireworks, everything else through the city, and the Elks Club has generously donated to the fireworks fund. But I'd really like to have Liz expound upon it and tell us what's going on for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So yes, our Independence Day celebration this year will be Saturday, July 6th. As you mentioned, I would like to thank the Elks Lodge 1019 for their generous donation toward the fireworks, and also the Burn Trust for their generous donation toward the fireworks. Saturday is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to start at 4:30. That's going to be for a lot of the kids stuff. We have the inflatables, we'll have balloon art, face painting, and then Parks and Rec is going to be there with a lot of yard games for the kiddos. I know that the police and fire departments are also going to bring out some of their equipment, so the kids will be able to do touch a truck and learn some stuff along the way as well. Probably one of the, I'm sorry, and then also at 5 o'clock is when food and drinks will start being served. So the Elks Lodge is also going to be selling pork chop sandwiches, hot dogs, and then some other stuff to go along with that, along with drinks, and 66 Licks will be there as well for ice cream. And then the band we're really excited about. They are called the Flatbed Fords, and they're the Best of the Eagles. So it's an Eagles tribute band. They're going to play for 2 hours from 7 to 9, and then we'll go right into the fireworks display very shortly after that. Hope to see everybody out there.
Typically, this draws a huge crowd. Not only for the fireworks, but for the band. At times, Bob Carls used to tell me there was 2,000 people out there one year, and he was probably right. So it was a great turnout, and if the weather will cooperate, it'll be a great turnout this year too. So that's all I really have right at the moment. City Council comments. Bill.
I had a call today with concerns of our swinging bridges, what type of maintenance program we have on them. I guess they need some work. Need to be weed whacked around them, I guess. I didn't drive by it today, Chris, but.
Yeah, we go through them on average once a month and fix loose boards and things like that. It's kind of how we maintain them. They're probably due for an overhaul. It's probably been 15 years since we replanked them. But that's kind of how we maintain.
So it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, we're always checking them because kids will go through and kick the uprights and try and break the spindles out. And sometimes the boards will break, so that's how we maintain them.
Any other questions, comments, council? If not, we're going to give Jim another opportunity. City Administrator.
2 things real quick. Just an update on the ambulance substation. We're still working through USDA paperwork for that $500,000 grant that we were awarded. That's the federal grant, so I think it is a good thing that we were able to move that money from federal to state on the ITEP grant. So because that's been a long wait. And so, but I also wanted to take a moment to recognize the Humison Trust decided to partner with the city on the ambulance substation and graciously committed $1.5 million to the project. Pretty substantial and incredible gift that we got. They'll be delivering $300,000 a year for 5 years. In addition to that, the Foreign Fire Tax Board has given at this point, a verbal commitment for purchasing items inside the fire